This is Driving Solutions, exclusively on CPTnews.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Jim Fitzpatrick, and you're watching another edition of Driving Solutions exclusively at CPTnews.com. An era where giants like Amazon and Tesla are reshaping consumer expectations, the retail automotive industry finds itself at a crossroads of traditional sales practices and innovative strategies. On today's show, Rusty West, the co-founder and president of Market Scan Information Systems, explains the shift in how consumers view pricing, the hurdles dealerships face in presenting clear payment structures, and other post-pandemic car buying challenges. So, Rusty, thank you so much for joining us on the show once again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Amazon and Tesla have changed the way consumers buy goods and cars specifically. What two areas of the car buying process are being impacted by the Amazon and Tesla phenomenon?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's a fun one to look at, right? Because if you look at Amazon in particular, right, they changed the way everybody shops for vehicles, and they've made consumers literally want to hold everybody up to a higher standard, right? Mm-hmm. So I go shop for something, I know exactly what it's going to cost. They hit my credit card for that exact amount and all that, right? Tesla's done the same thing, right? You go into a Tesla store to buy a car. They go to Tesla.com and they sit on the same website that any consumer can go to, build the vehicle. We know exactly what the pricing is. We get everything. It's all completely transparent. So they've driven that process to where consumers are literally expecting more. And now as an ecosystem, I guess, if you will, we have to deliver that. And it's created some challenges and a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. Can you explain what you mean when you say that consumers have changed from being price shoppers to being payment shoppers? I know you've mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah. So I've been in this space since '88, right? When I first got into it, most everybody was a price shopper. They wanted to know how much they were paying for the car. They want to make sure they were getting a good deal on the car. Mm-hmm. And the monthly payment had to fit within their budget, but that wasn't the consideration of the purchase.
Right.
It was, am I getting the right price on the car? And then we kind of went through an evolution where consumers were price shoppers, but they became payment buyers.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's almost 80% maybe are payment shoppers and payment buyers.
Yeah.
And that's driven by a ton of different things, not the least of which is the average price of a new car is $50,000. So, you start throwing around $50,000 as a number, people are like, yeah, that's great. What are my payments, right? Yeah. Can I afford this thing? And it's really shifted the way that dealerships are having to market vehicles and the way the whole, the digital retailing, all the different aggregators and all that stuff are looking at marketing vehicles well, because that's how consumers are shopping.
Yeah. So why is presenting a fully baked, complete consumer payment so difficult for retailers to figure out?
Because the automotive space is the most gloriously dysfunctional, disconnected space. And it really is. It's been technologically neglected for decades. There's literally zero normalization or consistency amongst the different constituents, right? Every lending institution has their own way of doing things. Every manufacturer has their own way of doing things. The dealers have their own way of interpreting tax laws. And then you get into all the municipality goo. And when we get governmental agencies involved, mathematics typically don't make a ton of sense, right? So you've got all these different ways where things are taxed and how registration fees are calculated and all that. There's a ton of stuff that's disconnected, right? And that's what we spent 3 decades figuring out, was how do we normalize all this stuff to where the consumers don't have to worry about the complexities that go into the calculation. They just have to be concerned about the results of it.
Yeah, and it gets to the point where retailers in general, they just don't present the right payment to the consumer, which really frustrates the heck out of today's consumer that's saying, wait a minute, why is the automotive industry, the retail automotive industry, I should say, still playing around in this and not getting this area right, where every other area of my life, whether it be Amazon orders or any retailer that I'm doing business with, gets it right and we move on?
Yeah, it's a great point.
I mean, you mentioned a few of those reasons, but
and it's not just the consumer who gets bent out of shape; it's the dealer, right?
Yeah, so good point.
I used to do these presentations where we kind of talked about how it was in the old days, right? I mean, I'm a product of the automotive industry. My dad was in it before he ever met my mom, right? So you have the 1980s. image of a used car salesman with big teeth, big hair, plaid polyester sport coat, right? And the bait and switch guy, right?
Yeah.
And we spent decades trying to distance ourselves as an industry from that stigma. And I think we did a heck of a good job.
Yeah.
Right. And then COVID hits and everybody's shopping online because they can't go into a store, and consumers are getting quoted something upstream, $300 a month. They go to the store, it's $400 a month.
Yeah.
And it's not the dealer's fault because the digital retailing company didn't represent the dealer's payments the way they want to represent it. Right.
Yep.
So the stigma comes back, but this time it's not earned. Right. So the dealers feel the pain, the consumers feel the pain. And the good news is that there's been enough squeaky wheels in the space to where they're driving a change, right? And that change is starting to come, and it's created some wonderful space for us and a lot of other players. And it's a problem that has to be solved. And until we solve it, there's always going to be pain in the transaction.
Yeah, because there's also that situation of retailers not presenting the same payment to the consumers across the channels in the store, and in the store, I should say. Where is the disconnect? Because it's so confusing to that consumer that might get one number, on one website and another on another website, and then they come into the dealership, and of course, then it might be another number. And
it's a mess. So there's 4 classes of data we have to get right in order to do it, right? You get the manufacturer, the lender, the municipality, and the dealership, right? And with the manufacturer, obviously, we've got to get the rebates and incentives right. That's a big piece, right? The lending institution, we got to get everything right, but we got to use the right lender, right? So it might be that we're getting quoted a lending institution that's got a super aggressive program, but the dealership might not have that in their portfolio. So I don't want to quote a payment that's $50 a month cheaper than the dealership can deliver.
Sure.
So that disconnect between the companies that are presenting payments to the consumer upstream and the dealership themselves is the one that has to be corrected or connected, right? And the only way to do that is you have to accurately represent all 4 of those classes of data,
right?
And especially the dealership class, right? We have to get that right because we don't want to quote payments that are theoretical payments if the dealership can't actually deliver it to the consumer.
Yeah, sure. What risks and challenges do you see retailers facing when it comes to enhancing the way they accommodate consumers today?
Drinking the Kool-Aid of the less expensive product.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a lot of digital retailing technologies out there that are saying, hey, we can save a few bucks over here. And we just have to be kind of close. And that doesn't work. Right. I mean, you look, when the big players come into the space, and they are coming, right? They'll be delivering an Amazon type experience, which is you go and you know exactly what you're getting. And what you were told you were going to get is exactly what you get. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And if the competitors in that space don't offer the same level of satisfaction to the consumer, they're going to be in trouble. And the dealers who are putting their eggs in those baskets that aren't accurately represented are going to feel a lot of pain.
That's right. This to me, it would seem to me, Rusty, that this is not an area that a dealer wants to skimp on to get a better deal. I mean, it sounds like you're cutting your nose off to spite your face a little bit, in the sense that average dealers spending $75,000, $100,000 a month on advertising, but yet we're going to skimp on something that is so vital to the success of that dealership's operation, online and offline, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know that it's as much a factor of the dealer skimping as it is of some of the technology companies skipping, or and this is going to sound horrible, maybe trying to do it themselves, right? We look at what we do, and we only do one thing, right? We aggregate data to calculate payments.
Yeah.
We calculate 250 million payments a day, and it takes about 100 people to get it right?
Yeah.
So it's very hard. Like you mentioned earlier, it's super complex.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies out there that have brilliant developers. They do gorgeous user interfaces. They manage user experiences, all that stuff very, very well. But they want to go do this themselves. Let's just buy some data and we'll cobble together a calculation engine because it seems easy, right?
Yeah.
And at first glance, it does seem easy, but realistically, it's very expensive to do. You either need a big staff of very talented people, or you need to work with a company that has a big staff of very talented people. Yeah. And that comes at a premium because it's just an expensive product, right?
Yeah.
Or expensive process to maintain. So, I think from a dealership standpoint, the challenge is really vetting the partners they select to make sure that those partners will accurately represent the terms and conditions under which they're willing to transact. And if they are, then you're in good shape.
Yeah.
If they're not, you're going to continue to have that disconnect, and the consumer and the dealer is going to feel the pain.
Yeah. What are some of those strategies retailers can adopt to thrive in a post-COVID retailing era that we find ourselves in?
Acquiesce a little bit, right? We've had generation after generation of come on in and we'll talk about how much the car is. Come on in, we'll talk about what your payments are. Come on in, let's get together. Let me do a great deal for you, right? And, consumers don't like shopping that way anymore.
No.
Right? And I understand the merit behind it. And
Sure.
People say, okay, well, how much is your product? I'm like, oh, I can tell you how much my product is until I have an opportunity to quantify the value of the product, right? The difference between being in a software company and selling your wares versus being a dealership and selling cars is I have to actively quantify the value of our product. I have to show everybody what it does, right? Every consumer on the planet can go and they can find out about absolutely everything about a car without ever talking to anybody, right? They can see every great review, every bad review.
Oh, yeah,
they can
for sure.
buddies, they can see them, they can go test drive, they can do all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? Without actually talking to a salesperson. And so we're now talking about selling a product that consumers are educated on, right? And they want to know, can I afford this or not? Am I willing to invest my time to go to the dealership and figure the rest of it out? Tell me how much it is, right? And we see that there's literally two camps still. There's we're not going to quote payments online, and we're quoting everything online. We're one price. We're not negotiating, and and some dealers that are doing it and doing it right are absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
Right. And we're getting to a scenario where we're going to have to start doing that because inventory is coming back, and we're going to have to go back to learning how to sell cars as opposed to, just having customers come and gobble them up.
Yeah.
So,
it's crazy. It really is. We are in a new time right now. So you and MarketScan are going to be, you'll have a significant booth presence at Digital Dealer in Vegas. What are you planning for Digital Dealer?
One of the things that's been a little bit challenging, a lot of it fun, for sure, very interesting, is when we joined the S&P family. It's a big family of a bunch of very cool companies, right?
Yeah.
They an automotive mastermind, they own Pulp, they own Carfax, and they got massive amounts of data.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
We focus in a lot on trying to normalize the various data sets in the different areas of the organization with ours to figure out, okay, how can we analyze things differently, right? So we'll be showing a little bit of that. A lot of the stuff we'll be doing is catching up with existing customers and demoing our products and all that stuff. So it's almost exactly the same as every trade show, right? We always try to show it with something cool. This time we get to show up with something cool, but have 33,000 team members in the background that can help us couple together some fun stuff as opposed to about 100. So
you are known for always having the coolest booth because of the cars that you bring in. Will we see any of that at Digital Dealer?
So not this year. As much as I love bringing cars, right? And I'm a car fanatic.
Of course,
We were talking about this before we started recording.
Right.
I'm absolutely positively going to die broke with cool toys, right? But there's so many more team members and so many more things to talk about that we needed every inch of the floor space. And they're like, yeah, Rusty, love you, pumpkin, but you're not bringing a car.
That's right. We need that room.
Yeah.
We need that room.
We need the room.
That's right. So. Rusty West, co-founder and president of MarketScan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It is always a pleasure catching up with you. We will see you out at Digital Dealer as well. Hopefully you're going to come over and give us some time at the CBT stage. Love to have you on there and talk more about this, maybe a little bit further in depth as well. So best of luck to you, safe travels, but we're going to see you in a couple of weeks.
100%. Thanks for having me, and no worries. I'll never miss the opportunity to shake your hand in person. We're at a trade show, so I look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Driving Solutions, exclusively on CPTnews.com.